Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and this is World War III Update. Before we get into it, just want to mention a couple of things. First up, Patreon. If you'd like to support the work we do here at Astral Club, you can certainly do so on Patreon. When you join, you get a chat function, a direct mail to me with your ideas, comments, and advanced podcasts on Sunday. If that sounds interesting, just go to the description. You'll find a link there. Next up, private lessons. If you'd like a lesson, learn how to astral project, be glad to work with you. We've had some great success with folks now all over the world. If that sounds interesting, just go to the description. There's an email there. Just ask for more information. Okay, I've been putting this off, but let's get into it. World War III update. I've had a number of Astral Club members leave comments over the last number of weeks, what have you, asking if there's any kind of a World War III update. I was putting it off. I didn't really want to find out any more. It can be a burden sometimes having information where you feel powerless to change it. It's great to have information about the future if you see something you don't like and you have the power to change it. But how frustrating is it to see a possibility, to know a tragedy is coming, but also realize that your ability to actually make a change and avoid that timeline is extremely small, if perhaps invisible. But I'm going to get into this, and because I have to. I didn't intend to time travel into the opening act of World War III. I guess I was thinking about the suggestions that I'd gotten from Astral Club members. And one moment I was falling asleep, thinking about the chaotic state of the world, all the conflict going on, the preparations for conflict. The next thing I know, I'm vibrating through the astral. And the astral wind, that powerful wind that occasionally comes out of nowhere and just grabs me, kidnaps me, and takes me with it. I had the feeling that I was like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, whirling in the twister. The only thing missing was Elmira Gulch and her bicycle. When I landed and materialized onto the timeline, the air felt wrong. It felt hot, metallic, electric. The sky over the Middle East was streaked with contrails, drones, and the dull orange flicker of distant fires. I imagined it smelled like oil, dust, and old grudges. Yet, this is one of those bad futures. Possible futures. Let's keep on remembering that. I found myself wishing, idly, that my angel guide was here. Hello, Rick. It's been a while. My angel guide suddenly popped into existence out of nowhere. Hey, thanks for coming. I wish DoorDash was as quick as you. I don't like what I'm seeing here. Please, tell me what happened, and is there any way to prevent this kind of a timeline? I'll guide you through this mess of a possible future, my angel said. Immediately, the surroundings changed as my angel opened a huge 365-degree hologram all around us, with a confusion of numerous images flashing all in a jumble. My angel guide felt my sensory overload right away. I'll slow the frame rate down for you, he said. The spark apparently ignites after a major regional assassination. A high-ranking military or political figure is killed in a U.S. or Israeli strike. The reality is still in motion and may yet be prevented by calmer heads prevailing on both sides. But as we speak, this timeline is narrowing towards selection. A coalition of American enemies apparently retaliate with massive missile and drone strikes targeting Israeli cities, U.S. bases in Iraq, and Gulf energy infrastructure. Within 72 hours, the region detonates into a multi-front war. This isn't a skirmish, Rick. This is the opening chapter of World War III. I asked who would be the enemies of the U.S. coalition, and he said Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthis out of Yemen, Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria, partial backing from Russia, and quiet material support from China. I guess all of those make sense. I said, well, what about U.S. allies? Well, of course, Israel, United Kingdom, France, NATO intelligence and logistics, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE may be reluctantly dragged in. He then went on to say that there'd be secondary flashpoints. Turkey would opportunistically move into northern Syria. Russia would escalate to protect regional influence. China will be maneuvering economically and possibly militarily to secure oil lanes. Cyber warfare will erupt globally, and energy markets will implode. It becomes a multi domain war: missiles, drones, cyber, space based assets, proxy armies, economic warfare, and information manipulation. The world doesn't end overnight, but it starts bleeding everywhere. My angel guide went on to say what makes this future so dangerous is a misinterpreted radar event nearly triggers a nuclear escalation. Oil supply collapse throws the global economy into a depression. Refugee waves destabilize Europe and Asia. A regional war morphs into a global power confrontation. And once pride locks in, no one wants to be the first to blink. The resulting World War III will be shorter than the previous two, but casualties could be counted in the hundreds of millions. The scariest part, this future isn't fueled by evil masterminds, Rick. It's fueled by ego, fear, revenge, domestic politics, and leaders who refuse to appear weak. Classic human programming. I ask the all important question: is it possible for this timeline to be avoided? I ask. He said, the future is not fixed, it's a branch. Here's how humanity can prevent this disaster. He said, we should establish a permanent Middle East crisis de escalation pact. We should have a real time military hotline between folks like Iran, Israel, US, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. There should be mandatory cooling off periods after any major strike. That's going to be tough to make happen because when people's tempers get high. But this is what we have to do. And there should be an independent UN or a neutral investigation before any retaliation. The goal: to prevent emotional knee-jerk retaliation spirals. See, that's the problem, and it's especially tough in the Middle East, is that one person attacks because they feel they've been attacked in one way or another. And so then they launch an attack. And then the person who's attacked, the country that's attacked, well, they have to reply. And then the nation that then gets that replied violence, then they've got to reply again. And off it spirals. Once it starts, it becomes extremely difficult to stop. He said we also should have binding global agreements banning proxy militias. That would be a big one. My guess is Iran would fight that. Sanctions on states that fund armed non-state actors. Gradually demobilize programs for militia groups. He said the goal here would be to remove the shadow armies that escalate conflicts invisibly. He said also there should be some energy independence and transition. He says we need to reduce global reliance on Middle Eastern oil. We need to accelerate nuclear, he said nuclear, renewables and regional energy grids. There needs to be strategic energy cooperation instead of energy rivalry. The goal here would be less oil dependency, which would equal fewer war incentives. He then brought up the next bit, which, as you know, concerns me, which is Cyber and AI War Prevention Treaty. We need to ban autonomous lethal AI escalation systems. We need to regulate cyber attacks on civilian infrastructure. And we need to create global digital ceasefire protocols. The goal would be to prevent automated or accidental war triggers. We got to watch that AI. I'm telling you. Yeah. I'd rather trust a real human than some computer mind that doesn't have real human emotions. And I don't believe an AI will ever have real human emotions. They may have a good or a reasonable proximity of what a human emotion looks like, but they won't feel it. And certainly, they won't feel the terror and fear of your people and your family being wiped out. Um, that's something I don't believe a machine will ever truly understand. The harder one is cultural and psychological shifts. We need to teach leaders and citizens to value de escalation over domination. We need to reward diplomacy instead of chest thumping. And we need to reduce propaganda that turns entire populations into enemies. We need to stop feeding the emotional engine that wants war. These were some of the things that he went over with me. He said there was a lot more, but he said you probably won't be able to remember more than what I've already talked about. And he was right. My story that I create, it can only stretch so far. Anyway, I thanked him for his help. Not that I was really happy or looking forward to having to even report this, because when I return to my body, I always struggle with this kind of stuff. I say to myself, should I really tell people about this? I mean, I don't want to bum people out. But, then on the other hand, I've had people tell me, you have to release this information. And release along with it some path to avoid that possible future. So that's why I'm presenting this. And if you find that interesting in any way, shape, or form, please hit the like button, share it with those of like mind, subscribe if you haven't already, and please let me know your thoughts and questions about this possible future. Please don't be fearful, because fear doesn't help us. All you do is you just add to the global fear index, which probably just drives us stronger to this kind of a future. So, be positive the best way possible and try in your own way to make this world more peaceful. That's what we should be doing, not casting more fear into the ether. At any rate, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.